Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend.
Arms with the flick, Johnson with the turn, Johnson with the goal, and the game turned on its head.
Still trying to turn off for McAllister, back on to Rob Edwards! What a goal for Rob Edwards!
What a goal, Aaron Moy! An absolute thunderbolt delivered all the way from Australia. Played down the left and Moy stayed onside. Here's Mounier. 2-0 Huddersfield Town on the opening day of the Premier League. De Plata's forward. De Plata's got the better. Yes! And Laurent De Plata scores. Laurent De Plata scores.
It's in the box. It's in there. It's in there. It's there. It's on the board. It's in there. The King of Huddersfield.
Hello and welcome to the preview show, The Drive-In, the preview show that pops on some sunglasses, opens a sunroof and cruises around with annoyingly loud 80s rock music blaring out. Will Michael Duff be singing Here I Am Again on my own this weekend at Bristol Rovers as injuries are at piss-takingly high levels? But fear not. Sorry didn't seem to be the hardest word for PGMOL to say, as he's had an apology for the Wrexham goal on Tuesday night. Suppose that's all right then. Joining me this week is a man who knows how to play White Snake. It's Ian Kilroy. How are we doing, mate?
Do you know what, Matt? I'm all right. I've gotten over Wrexham pretty quickly. I think it's refreshing to see a game where we're not great, but we're better than we have been. And the sun's out today. Shorts were on, Matt. 16 degrees in my back garden in Shepley. So you can't ask for much more than that, can you, really, at this point of the year?
Very nice. Right. So this weekend, after we saw Disney on grass on Tuesday night, will Town be gash at the gas? So if you listen to the Drive-In episode 5, you'll know all about Bristol Rovers and that the club was founded in 1883 as the Black Arabs FC, entered the Bristol League as Eastville Rovers in 1892, and the club moved to the Birmingham District League in 1897, and then changed divisions to the Southern League as Bristol Rovers in 1899. 3 leagues, 3 names. So, Huddersfield Town are slightly ahead on the head-to-head matches between the two sides, very, very slightly. 14 Town wins, 13 for Bristol Rovers and 12 draws. Of the 39 matches between the sides, 24 have been played in the third tier. The first 12 matches, though, were played in the second tier through the 1950s and 60s. The great Jimmy Glazard scored the first ever goal between the two sides on the 10th of January 1953, in front of just shy of 35,000 fans at Leeds Road. A bit different back then, wasn't it, Killer? They all used to come out for the FA Cup, and it seems to have turned on its head now. It halves, doesn't it, the attendances? Players who've played for both. Some of these will ring a bell. Scott Bevan, Jamal Blackman, Muzzy Carriol, Anthony Evans, Tariq Holmes-Dennis, Jack Hunt, Gerald Eiffel, Lee Nichols, Kieran Phillips, Robbie Ryan, Neil Trotman, and Elliot Ward. And I might have to ditch FB Ref for this because it doesn't mention Marcus Stewart, Marcus Browning for a start from the 90s, or Colin Dobson and Mike Barry, who played for Town in the top league in 1971. I had to go for my own knowledge, Killer, on that one. It's an absolute outrage. Speaking of form, how are they getting on, mate? How are Bristol Rovers doing, our opponents for this weekend?
Well, they've had a bit of a strange season in that they've underperformed to even what they expected themselves. But they've been a bit like us, a bit streaky. Not as much as us. Obviously, we had a massive unbeaten streak, having lost 6 out of 7 or whatever, and whatever it was beforehand. But they did pretty awful at the beginning of the year. Got rid of Matt Taylor in December, and in came Inigo Calderon, who we'll all know from playing at Brighton forever and a day, it seemed, when he was there in the late 2000s. But they've not been great recently. They come into this a bit similar to us, Matt. Do you know, you like to call us Charity FC, don't you? Well, Bristol Rovers seem similarly a similar kind of thing in that they've lost recently to Northampton. They lost to Rotherham last Saturday. I think it was Saturday. They drew with last Tuesday night. They lost to Rotherham 3-2 at home, and Rotherham at that point had only won 2 games away all season and got about 4 points in 38,000 or something. The run was absolutely awful. Rotherham were on,
but that was the first time they'd won away from home on a Saturday in 3 years or something for Rotherham. It's something like that. It came up. Imagine being a Rotherham fan going away to every week and not seeing a win for 3 years. That's crazy. It's like supporting Huddersfield and never seeing a penalty at home.
Yeah, well, they're waiting to come to Huddersfield. They're waiting for next time they come to us. But fortunately for Rotherham, Bristol Rovers gave them what they needed to get out of that hole. But with Calderon, they started really well. They think they've got 4 wins out of the first 7 games with him or something. They did really, really well. But then he's dropped off. And he spoke about when he joined initially, Matt, he'd seen them on TV quite a bit, but he didn't understand how poor the culture were. But whenever I listen to this and read these kind of things with new managers coming in midway through the season, they all kind of say the same kind of thing, don't they, about every single team? And he fell within that again, saying, "No, the culture wasn't right, and it wasn't a nice place to be in." And he's tried to pick everybody up, and they went on a good run of form. But then recently, at the wrong part of the season, they've really struggled. And in the last 4 games, they've lost 3 times and drawn at Shrewsbury. And Shrewsbury, as we know, are pretty shocking in that they're losing to everybody at the moment. Even we managed to pick up a result down there. So we couldn't be facing Bristol Rovers on paper at a better time. However, I'm not entirely sure that's relevant anymore when it comes to Town. No, I know that's what I thought. As soon as I saw the Bristol Rovers form, it wasn't a good thing, seeing that they'd struggled recently, because we are the one team I guess anybody wants to face when they're not on a great run.
No, this to me this sounds like it's going to be a case of not so much Huddersfield Town versus Bristol Rovers, but something like I don't know, the Arts Council of England versus the British Council. Those are the two. I just Googled the 10 biggest charities in the UK. Sorry, and Huddersfield Town doesn't appear on there. Nuffield Health are the top charity apparently in terms of that's in terms of income. Definitely not. That's the one. That's definitely not the one. Expenditure. Here we go. Wellcome Trust and Nuffield Health. There we go. So those are the 2 biggest charities in England after Bristol Rovers and Huddersfield Town, apparently. Speaking of charity, it was very charitable of Ollie from the Bristol Rovers podcast Gascast to drop by, and I've had a nice little chat with Ollie, and this is a little interview that we put together earlier today.
Hi Ollie, thanks for doing this. It's been a while since we last played, so let us know how you lot have been getting on and how things are going down in Bristol.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that things haven't really improved at Rovers since we last played you earlier on in the season. It's been largely an underwhelming and, to be honest, for most parts, pretty terrible season. I mean, you just have to look at the league table. So we're currently 1 place above the relegation zone with a 3-point buffer at the minute. Form isn't great. I mean, we picked up a point away at Shrewsbury on Tuesday, who are obviously bottom of the league. 3 games before that were all defeats. So, yeah, it's not been a great season. Ended up changing our manager back at the end of December. So previously I had Matt Taylor in, and it just never worked out for him, really. He then got the sack, and now Inigo Calderon is the head coach. He was the Brighton under-18s coach before he took up our job. It's his first senior managerial job, so it's a little bit of a gamble, really, given the league position that we're in. He's doing okay so far. I think he's definitely trying to change the style of football and make us a bit more of a possession-based side, passing out from the back a bit more. Although saying that, the last couple of games we have reverted a little bit to how we were playing under the previous manager, which was more direct and sort of back to front a bit quicker. So, yeah, it's been okay. We've picked up a few good results under Calderon. The one thing that gives me a bit of hope going into our game with you guys is that the home form under Calderon has largely been pretty good, other than our last home game, which was a 3-2 defeat against Rotherham. But aside from that, I think the 3 home games before that Rotherham game, we won them all 3-1. So generally, we're scoring quite a few goals at home. But yeah, our away form is absolutely abysmal and has been all season. So not a lot has changed there. So yeah, not a fantastic season so far. Obviously a bit squeaky bum time now with the position we're in, heading into the final stages of the season. But fingers crossed we can finish on the right side of the dotted line come May.
Okay, mate, tell us something about Bristol Rovers that no one else will know outside of supporting Bristol Rovers.
So something you may not know about Rovers, unless you're a Rovers fan, is that when we were relegated in 2013-14. So that season we ended up going down to the National League for the first time in our history. And the penultimate game of the season, we were away at Wycombe, who were also down there scrapping with us. We got a massive victory there, 1-2-1. We all thought that was pretty much us safe. We then had Mansfield at home on the last game of the season, and we only needed a point. Mansfield were mid-table, not playing for anything. Mansfield then came to us and forgot their kit. So, because we're nice, we gave them our away kit to play in. So, final game of the season, we're at home against this, as I said, mid-table side. They're in our away kit. And yeah, they beat us 1-0 and dumped us into the conference wearing our away colours. So, it wasn't our finest moment. You just have to laugh about that sort of thing. That is just absolutely classic Bristol Rovers.
Bristol's obviously a really cool city, but where's the best place for the hundreds of Huddersfield fans who are coming down to sort of park and drink and just enjoy the weekend, basically?
Yeah, parking is unfortunately a bit of a tricky one when you're going to the Mem, because it's pretty much just a case of trying to find a spot on the streets around the ground, kind of residential parking. The place I park at is called Horfield Common. So, yeah, it's a bit of sort of greenery. It's about a 10-minute walk from the stadium, maybe. And you can usually find a spot around there. So if I had to say anywhere, I'd probably head towards Horfield Common. As for places to go pre-game, I mean, we're quite lucky in that the stadium is at the end of Gloucester Road. And that is just full of bars and pubs and takeaway places, like places to grab a bite to eat and stuff. So I don't have anywhere in particular to recommend, I wouldn't say. I mean, the Anchor on Gloucester Road's a great pub, although I think it's now home fans only, so maybe not the best one. The Sportsman, just off Gloucester Road, is pretty decent as well. You've got the Wellington, at the top of the hill from Rovers, which isn't a bad place to get a pre-game drink. But yeah, to be honest, if you head to Gloucester Road, you won't go far wrong in terms of finding somewhere decent to grab, a drink and a bite to eat before the game.
Anthony Evans has struggled a little bit since signing for us. He's had injury issues. He's been out of form. Can you assure us that this is actually a really good player? Because he's shown it in flashes. Is he a really good player? And tell us that there's more to come from him, basically.
Yeah, I both am and I'm not surprised, really, that Evans has struggled with you a little bit. He never had any injury issues with us, so that I think is a bit unfortunate, and it sounds like has disrupted his season a little bit. He was absolutely head and shoulders above a lot of League Two when we were at that level, and was a key part in us getting promoted. First season in League One, he had a bit of an iffy season. Took a season to adapt, and then second season in League One, he was just very, very good again. So, yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't been able to kick on. However, he's also one of those players who I think kind of needs the rest of the midfield to be tailored and built around him in a way in order to get the most out of him. So, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure sort of how you guys set up in midfield and the kind of balance you've got in there. But yeah, he is, I wouldn't say he's a luxury player because he does get stuck in, and yeah, he's not afraid of a challenge. And he, I mean, for us at least, used to put in a hell of a shift as well. So he's definitely not one of those players who offer nothing off the ball, but he is very much someone who wants to affect the game going forward more so. And yeah, I think there is more to come from him for you guys. Maybe he's struggling with the kind of step up and the step up in expectation as well, because with us, he was very much, a kind of mid-table, lower to mid-table League One side. And obviously with you guys pushing for playoffs and hopefully promotion, obviously. Then, yeah, maybe he's just struggling with that a little bit. But he is, I'd say the only thing is he is a bit of a one-club man at the minute in terms of where he's shown his best form. And because it was with Rovers. I mean, before us, he was at Crewe. and a German club that escapes me now, maybe Paderborn, and apparently wasn't fantastic there. Then had a really good spell at Rovers, and now has obviously gone to you guys, and sounds like isn't performing great. So, yeah, I hope there's more to come from him because on his day he is a brilliant player, and he was very consistent for us as well. So, yeah, I would say keep the faith with him. Stick behind him, and hopefully next season he'll push on.
How do you expect Bristol Rovers to line up then? What's the system of choice and the style, and any players that we should really be looking out for?
So typically under Calderon, we've been going with a 4-3-3/4-2-3-1 type setup. However, in the last couple of games, he has flirted with a back three. And we actually started with a back three for the first time under him in our last game on Tuesday night. So makes me think we may go with a back three again against you guys. He seems quite keen at the moment to have two out-and-out strikers on the pitch. So I think that's really been the driver behind the change of shape. We're typically playing a back three of all blokes who are kind of 6'2", 6'3" plus to give us a bit of aerial solidity because we've just been absolutely terrible at defending set pieces all season. So I think that's the reason behind that. Couple of wing backs, usually then two in midfield who kind of two number sixes really that kind of hold the shape, and then you've got a number 10 that plays behind two out and out strikers. So I guess a 3-5-1-2 if my maths is right. So I think we'll probably go with something like that. Players to watch out for. I might struggle with that. I would say Matt Butcher has made a good impact for us. So he's come from Wickham in January, centre midfielder. Good technical player. Has really helped with the transition of our style of play into being a more possession-heavy side. Because he is quite technically gifted, got a good pass on him. He's just quite calm and composed and keeps the ball. Yeah, so I'd say Butcher's one of them. As for another one, maybe Promise Omacheri. So he's our record signing. Signed him in the summer from Fleetwood for about 500,000. He's actually had his own injury issues this season, been in and out of the squad a bit due to that, but he's back fit again now, and he's just a really kind of physical, mobile, athletic number 9. He's not prolific in front of goal, but he just offers so much to the team. He's a really good platform for us to play off. You can hit it into a channel for him and he'll get onto the end of it, hold it up, knock it over the top of a defence, or play it into his feet, and he's quite big and strong, and use him as a bit of a battering ram sometimes. So yeah, I'd say Promise Omacheri is one to watch out for as well.
And finally, mate, give us a score prediction for this Saturday.
So we recorded our own podcast last night, and on that one, I predicted the score to be a 2-2 draw. So I will stick to my guns and say that it's going to be an entertaining 2-2, which, myself and I think every other gashead would absolutely snatch your hand off for. So, 2-2.
Okay, thanks for that, Ollie. Some really good answers there, and he's given Anthony Evans a thumbs up, and he thinks Anthony Evans will be all right if we build a midfield around him for next season, and he's gone for a 2-2 draw. Okay, so Killer, I think what we need to do now is we need to delve into the world of, I'm going to say espionage then, but we don't do espionage, do we, on this podcast? We're going way too far there. I think what we need to do is we need to delve into the world of tactics, and it's time for everybody's favorite. I feel like the tactics board maybe need its like little music or something now, Killer. I think it's evolved, hasn't it? I think it's such a favorite now that it needs its own little intro or musical intro. But anyway, we're here on the tactics board. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can hear it. If you are listening, we are pretty good at explaining ourselves, I think. So we will explain away on what we're thinking. So honestly, if you've never seen the tactics board, you're not missing much. It's basically my PC, some green, and some circles. So you're not missing masses. Okay. I think what's going to be interesting in this one, Killer, is how Huddersfield Town set up, because we've got no centre-backs. The press conference has been today. The reason why we tend to record now on a Thursday instead of a Wednesday is because it gives us a bit more insight, because we can listen to the press conference from Michael Duff. So it was Hoggy and Duff today. Great news, great stuff for Hoggy. I know it was a defeat on Tuesday night, and it's a very disappointing one as well. But, however, one good thing that came out of it was 400 appearances for Jonathan Hogg, which was a great milestone for him. And hopefully there's one or two more left in the tank. And he seems to think there's certainly some more left in the tank as well. A couple of years, he said. So watch this space for what happens with the Hogmaster General. Killer, we need to have a look at Bristol Rovers versus Huddersfield. So I think it might be easier to go through the Bristol Rovers team possibly first. Ollie from Gascast thinks they're probably going to go 3-5-2 again, and I think that might make sense from their point of view, because I think they'll want to match us up maybe a little bit. So their team itself. So I've got, for those that are looking on YouTube, so we've got Bristol Rovers are the ones in blue, and Huddersfield are going to be the ones in red here. So we'll just alter that strike partnership a little bit. So what Bristol Rovers have gone with, they've gone with a back three. So Jed Ward, not Jed Steer, but Jed Ward, not the annoying Irish pair of pricks that popped up a couple of years ago and seemed to pop up again recently. But Jed Ward is in goal. I mean, if you want to give him some stick behind the goal, by all means do. Because you can't get away with being named that, can you? It's a shocker. The three centre back, James Wilson's been around for quite a while. 36 years of age now. The centre back he tends to play on the right hand side. Connor Taylor in the middle, 23 years of age, ex Stoke youngster there, who's not a bad little player. The fantastically named Sil Swinkles, a Dutch footballer, has been playing on the left side of centre back on loan from Aston Villa, which is a great name. Then our old friend on the right hand side, Jack Hunt, I have to say that very carefully, has been playing right wing back. So it's a good testament to his fitness. He's still going at 34 years of age. He's had a pretty good career, I think, to be fair, as Jack. Probably hasn't reached the heights as it Killer that what maybe we thought he might do at one point when he was rampaging down that right hand side. He looked like he could be a really good attacking force, but defensively just lacked a little bit, didn't he? So maybe that's why he's maybe not really reached the Premier League.
He got injured as well, didn't he?
Premier League. Yeah, we sold him to the Premier League
straight away.
Yeah, I think Holloway signed him, didn't he? Ian Holloway, and he signed him, and he was going to make his debut against Man United, who was the team that he supported as a kid. I mean, imagine growing up in Leeds supporting Man United. I mean, half of them do. Not that they'll let you know that, but he wanted to play for Man United as a kid, or at Old Trafford at least. And he got injured in one of his first training sessions and couldn't play. So and then he never really kicked on there, did he? I think it was Palace, wasn't it, where he went to?
Yeah.
And ended up being a pretty good Championship player, I think, for most of his career. And I think that's a decent enough career. And then on the other side is Clinton Mola, who 23-year-old Londoner, wasn't brilliant, was he, when he played at our place? We maybe expected a little bit more from him, but Mola will play on the as a left wing back. And then midfield, they've got Butcher, Matt Butcher, who ex Wickham player. He was pretty good at Wickham, to be fair. He had a pretty good spell at Wickham. He's in the centre of midfield for them. 27 years of age, good age for a midfielder, good experience at this level as well. And Grant Ward, who is another player, 30 years of age, who was really highly rated as a young player. Do you remember he was at Spurs, wasn't he? And he was really highly rated. And another one who's just not quite kicked on to maybe what he should have done. So Grant Ward usually lines up with Butcher. What you get is with those two, Grant Ward can play a little bit. He's quite quick. He can play wide as well. Butcher's a bit more industrial, isn't he? He can get through some work in there. And then the number 10 at the minute is Isaac Hutchinson, who's 24 years of age. Young lad from Eastbourne. He's been at Bristol Rovers, I think, a little while. Just looking at this, so so he's been here for about a year. Previously at Walsall, and youth career at Brighton. So he's come through the Brighton Academy. So Hutchinson is going to be number 10. And the two strikers that they have, so they've had Promise Omacheri, who was their record signing, didn't they, Killer? Remember when we did the previous drive-in, we did a little bit on Promise Omacheri, who came for, I think it was about $500,000 rising from Fleetwood. And it was quite a big fee for Bristol Rovers, and he's not quite hit the heights that they maybe would have promised. I shouldn't have done that, should I? I've gone really easy there. But he's got 4 goals this season, which for a record striker sign is probably disappointing for them. So he's found himself a little bit out of the team at the minute. And the main two, Chris Martin, who Town fans will know because he's an absolute pain in the backside, 36 years of age now, Chris Martin, but he's good in the air and he's been a pain or a thorn in our side for 10, 15 years, hasn't he? An absolute pest of a striker. He's still fairly decent. He will play up front with Rule Satiriou, who again not masses have got. He's more of a. I think he's been more of a winger really. Cypriot player. Plays wide more than through the middle, I think. So he's only got 4 goals as well. So they're not prolific. Chris Martin's got 3, but he's a good target man. Is Chris Martin? So you can see if they choose to play early forward early, sorry. Chris Martin's going to be the target man, and he's going to pull between the 3 Huddersfield centre backs. So essentially, what they'll do is they'll try and hit him, and then Satiriou's got a little bit of pace, so they'll look to pick up the seconds in and around him. So basically, Martin will go try get between the 2 centre backs to force a knockdown. And what they'll have is they'll have Satiriou buzzing around, looking to get either in behind or just in front, and then Isaac Hutchinson will come in this side here. As well as the wing backs then will sort of pile forward. And what they'll do is they'll either try and get the ball into Chris Martin's head, where they'll try and make things happen, or things basically just drop him from Chris Martin, being a pain in the backside. And the reason why he'll be a pain in the backside, Killer, is because Huddersfield Town don't have any centre backs to pick, which is an absolute shambles of a situation, which is not Michael Duff's fault. Really, he's had to play Nigel Lonvike, and it looks like he's overplayed. For those Patreon users, not Patreon users, but Patreon subscribers, who we thank you very much for your patronage. It's been brilliant to see how many people have signed up and backed the podcast. I'm sure we can get more, so tell your friends and family all about it. But for those that will have listened to us against Wrexham as well. So we did a little podcast. A midweek podcast called TTC Extra Time, which you can listen to if you're a Patreon subscriber. And we talked a little bit, didn't we, Killer, about the defensive frailties in the air and how Wrexham sort of basically put the ball in the box in the air, and that's where Town struggled. And that's where Town will struggle here, because I dare say we'll have Lee Nichols in goal, who's fantastic at picking things up inside his 6 to 10 yards from his goal line. Really good. Probably not a better goalkeeper in this league than him at that. But the back 3 is difficult. I imagine he's got 2 options, really, hasn't he, Killer? He's either going to go with Brodie Spencer in the middle. So I think Josh Ruffles will be locked in as the left centre-back. And then there's 2 options. He either picks Lasse Sorensen as a right wing-back and puts Ollie Turton as a right centre-back and Brodie Spencer in the middle. Or he keeps Ollie Turton at right wing-back, or Sorensen. He plays Brodie at right centre-back, and Jonathan Hogg drops in between them for that experience there. And basically, when we talked about the Wrexham game, we saw how Hoggy lost his man basically for the goal. And it's different, isn't it, starting a game than what it is coming on at centre-back. It's a difficult position to enter the field at, because you've got to get to the game immediately. And if you don't, it can be a real slog. And the same for centre and midfield as well. Your wingers, your wide players tend to be a little bit different. But from the start, maybe that could be slightly different. So those are the options, really. You've got Turton, 5'8", 5'9". You've got Brodie Spencer, who's about 6 foot, and actually very good in the air is Brodie Spencer really for his size. He's very good in the air. And then Josh Ruffles, who's not bad in the air. He's not too bad, is he? He's a 6-footer as well. He's not too bad, but he's more of a fullback than a centre-back. So you've got that. So Chris Martin will pull on Ollie Turton all day if that happens. He'll pull on to Ollie Turton all day and he'll bully him. Whereas if you pick Jonathan Hogg probably isn't going to get outpaced by him, you would hope. But Hoggy's 5'8" as well, but Hoggy's actually deceptively good in the air. Do you know, if the ball comes straight forward, he's actually he's pretty good. So I'm not sure whether they'll pick Hoggy in the middle and have Brody at the right, and then Chris Martin's got less opportunity to be a pest. Whereas if they go with Turton in that back three, I can just see Martin pulling onto him all the time and just ruining him. And Ollie Turton's not that bad in the air. He's not terrible by any stretch. You know, he's not Dion Charles aerial duels percentage wise, but Chris Martin's a different kind of player, isn't he, at this level for those direct balls?
Yeah.
And if I was Inigo Calderon, I would certainly be saying, Chris, pull onto that wide centre back. We'll hit those diagonals. You know, they'll come down here. They'll hit a diagonal towards him, and then he'll look to just head into this area where Sotirio will look to run behind, and then Hutchinson will sit in front. I think that's how they'll look to play. And that, to me, that diagonal ball all day would make sense. And that's why I think I'd be slightly tempted to go for Hogg over Turton. But if Chris Martin doesn't play and they go with Omacheri and Sotirio, then Hoggy gets rinsed for pace through the middle. So there's that issue there. So you've got two issues. Hoggy and Spencer would be better on Martin. However, Turton would be much better on Sotirio and Omacheri. So there's trade-offs here, isn't there? And there's a difficulty with where we're going to go with this. I'm not sure where he's going to go, but because he finished the game with against Wrexham with Hogg in the back three, and Duff tends to kind of carry things over a little bit, I kind of think he might pick Hogg in the middle and have Ruffles.
It's going to be a slog. It's going to be a slog in it.
A slog with Hogg.
We're picking out 3 centre backs from 5 fullbacks and a centre midfielder. That's what we're trying to pick a back 3 out of. That's not hyperbolic. That's not
hyperbolics.
It's not, is it? This is a real situation that we're facing on Saturday. And I think if Bristol Rovers have got half a clue about themselves. Now, Calderon does play a little bit more possession-based football, Matt, than what you'd expect from a League One side, in that it's Brighton ball. It's a little bit more like that, but they're going to play, I think, how Wrexham tried to attack us, where they got it out wide, but then they crossed it pretty quick, and it puts a lot of pressure on those wide centre-backs, like you say, Matt, and that's where Martin will be. They'll be like from the goal Wrexham scored on Tuesday, where they cross from isn't a position on the pitch. And we went into this in depth on the extra time episode again, so we're not going to spoil it because that's on Patreon. But they're going to cross from these unorthodox places that Town generally don't cross from, because we don't have a striker who can win that header in that position. But Wrexham did have. They had 2 of them that could do it with Rodriguez and Sam Smith. Whereas if Chris Martin plays, they've got an option here, Bristol Rovers, in that they'll hit him on these quick diagonals to nod it down, like you say, Matt. And I think it comes down to, who do you think, or who does Michael Duff think can deal with that better? Is it Turton or is it Hogg? I don't think either of them can deal with it too well, to be totally honest. You are right in that starting a game is very different than coming on, and that's why it's very rare that a team takes off a centre-back at any situation in a game. No matter what the score is, it's very rare that a centre-back's taken off, because it's hard to get into a game once it's settled down. 70 minutes into a game, strikers tend to play in a typical way by that point, and a defender's kind of got used to his little adjustments and the way he's got to defend that striker. And that's why you just try and not do it if you don't have to. And if you do, what happens is like what happened to Johnny Ogg on Tuesday night, because you wouldn't expect that from him, but he got the wrong side of his man, and Smith did what he does and created a goal that should never have counted. Absolutely. I'd have to go with Turton personally, Matt. I think Hogg struggles to run back too well nowadays, and I think that's something that comes with age. I'm not saying his legs have gone, I'm not going to throw that out there, but generally when you're backing up towards your goal, that seems to go as well as you get older. And looking at Johnny Ogg, he doesn't track his runners like he used to. I don't think he has that ability to turn and track back as well as he once had it. So for me, I'd go with Turton over Hogg. But it's dire that this is something we have to talk about. 11 games out from the end of the season, that of all people still fit and still going, it's Johnny Ogg. Like that's nothing to happen by this point. But he's the guy that is the question mark on what we can do. But it's a tough decision for Duff to make this one.
Basically, for me, Jonathan Hogg facing his own goal is not a position you want him to be in. So Hoggy facing goal is not good. Hoggy facing forwards is fine, but it's it's about how deep you want your team to be, isn't it? Because if Hoggy's not facing his own goal, then it might have to be a little bit deep. The defense, that is, not this conversation. So that I think we're a little bit unsure about the back three, but one thing I'll be sure is Sorensen or Turton will be the right wing back, won't they? So we'll be looking at probably Sorensen, won't we, as that right wing back option? I mean, Loic Aina is another option, isn't he? He'll be on the bench. Whether he plays, probably not, because it looked like he was going to be on his way out of the club, with him being on trial elsewhere. So it looks like the club were happy to let him go until this injury crisis. And I might be out of line with that. I don't know, but it's just what it looked like. That was the optic behind that. Left wing back Ruben Roskin. Hopefully he's not too bad. I don't think we heard anything, did we? Other than he was tired in the press conference, which is good news because he looked like he was struggling a little bit against Wrexham with 20 minutes left. The centre midfield, I think he's going to keep it as it was. I think it'll be Evans. I think it'll be Hodge and Chirua in that. And I thought Chirua did quite a nice little link job behind the front two against Wrexham. He's played that position twice now. First time it didn't work at all. Against Wrexham it worked. It went quite well, didn't it? I think in a lot of it. I think he was very in and out at the game, was Chirua. But when he was in, he was very good and he was very effective. And I think that's what you want from your number 10. I'm liking Tuanda Chirua. I think there's a lot to like about him. I like his personality, and I just like how he tries things. I mean, if the opportunity arose to sign him and Lonvike permanently, you'd 100% go for it, wouldn't you? In a league in League One, because those are two players who potentially could really kick on and be worth a lot more money further down the line. Up front, I mean, it picks itself again. It's going to be Callum Marshall is the first striker on the team sheet, regardless, I think, at the minute, isn't he? And his partner for this game is likely to be Dion Charles over Freddie Ladapo. He said in the press conference to Michael Duff that Joe Taylor's not ready to start yet. So Joe Taylor won't be started. Josh Karoma is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. And one thing we covered on the Patreon for the Wrexham game was I was a little bit miffed, wasn't I, with how Karoma's calf was strapped up so tightly and so heavily, why he was risked. And we talked about the risk of that and the way things are going at the minute. And risking Karoma with that calf injury when he wasn't right, with that strapping on, has now seen him, he's now going to miss pretty much the rest of the season. And I just think that's not. I just thought it was a poor move. That I like Michael Duff, and there's a lot to like about him. And I don't think he's had a fair run at this job. But that for me was a mistake, picking Karoma. And I know it's easy for me to say that in hindsight, behind my desk, etc. And he'd probably tell me to f off as is his right. But I just felt that was just an unnecessary. Well, it was a risk. I don't think it was a necessary one, but but then again, had he not got injured and he just scored that goal being allowed against Wrexham, then we'd all be saying what a masterstroke from Michael Duff, wouldn't we? So I suppose that's just the way it goes, isn't it? It's just the way our luck's in at the minute. But he's out, Nigel's out. There's no one else is back. So it's going to be Dion Charles and Callum Marshall, isn't it, up front?
Yeah, it has to be, unfortunately. And I will say unfortunately, because I feel like Dion Charles isn't, at the moment, putting performances in that befits a starting striker in League One, Matt, for me. But there's nobody else there. I think Fred Ladapo, at times, offers a little bit more even than Charles has done recently. But then he's only playing 10 minutes at the end, and that's an easier thing to do when the game's kind of gone. It's just a shame Taylor's not ready to start. It's a bit weird, isn't it, that he can play in sub how many times, but not do more than that? Is that not a bit strange to you? Seems a bit weird to me. I can't remember another time where we've had a striker that's been injured and we've brought him back and he's had how many games where he can only play 10 minutes at the end, 15 minutes? I got really excited against Wrexham. I thought we were getting 7 minutes of Taylor because I've not seen enough of him to judge him. I've got a few queries about how he's going to play and his body shape, and he's very, very big, isn't he? He's a big lad when it comes to not his height, but his physique. So maybe that actually...
I stood next to him, mate. Honestly, I stood next to him at the Junior Blue and White Foundation signing thing, and Charlie was getting stuff signed by him. And he's tiny, but when he's on the field, he looks quite square, doesn't he, and quite strong. But honestly, when I was stood next to him, it looked like I could suplex him quite easily. Not that I was gonna, but he didn't look particularly quite big, strong, heavy. But when he's on the field and he's got his when he's in in football kit, he does look quite wide. He looks a lot broader than what you would think, and that's why I think Dave Hartrick always says he's like a. But he didn't quite say Poundland Wayne Rooney, did he? But he kind of said, like a budget-friendly Wayne Rooney or something like that.
Right.
Dave's not as harsh as that. He kind of said it in a nicer way, budget-friendly.
But no, he looks good.
So
He looks. I just hadn't seen it before, Matt, where a guy's been injured and come back and he can only do 10 minutes as much as Taylor can.
I don't think he'd be playing at all. I think if it wasn't for all the injuries, I don't think he'd be playing at all. I think he'd still be recuperating. I think, to be honest, I think it's just where we're at, isn't it? That Lonwijk's he's had to come back in because there's no one else, and then we've flogged him, and his hamstring's gone. It's just it's where we're at, isn't it? I mean, when Kasumu comes back, do you throw him straight back in? Because if you do, he's likely to go again. Same with Herbie Kane, same with Mikel Miller, same with everyone else. Maxwell's out injured, isn't he? Chris Maxwell's even injured at the minute with a hip issue. How? He's not played. It's bizarre.
Well, the only positive, I've got a positive though, Matt. That midfield against Wrexham did run the game. Our midfield was fine against Wrexham.
For a good hour, yeah.
It was fine, wasn't it? Hodge put in a good performance. I thought he looked really good. And if Hogg isn't playing centre back, I wouldn't be putting him in midfield because I think the three that we had with Chirua, Evans, and Hodge was good. And it'd be nice to see them against the Bristol Rovers team that'll pass it around a little bit more than what Wrexham did. I do like Chirua. I'm with you. I think he's solid. But you know what? He's never actually scored a goal at senior level football, which I found quite which is.
I saw him score a goal for Ipswich, but I couldn't remember at Portman Road. But I couldn't remember if it was a youth team game. It was a pretty good goal. It might have been a youth team game, so it might be. Yeah, might be right.
But he looks good. He looks handy, and it's nice to see him play because he gives us something else, doesn't he? When he gets the ball, it's exciting. He gets you off your seat a little bit, and we don't have many players like that. And when he does,
I think he's the key. I genuinely think he's the key for this game. Ruskin down the left is important. Down the right, Sorensen. I mean, we've got that. There's good pace there. There's good endeavour, isn't there? And there's covering defenders in Ruffles and Spencer Orta, and they can underlap as well, which is good. So that I'm not worried about that side of things on the ball. And Hodge is decent on the ball. Evans is good on the ball if we're not losing. When we're losing, his head tends to go a little bit. Chirua, I think, though, is the key. I think he's the one that we'll look at to sort of get into those inside channels, really, and to sort of commit players so that Charles and Marshall can kind of get behind. So I could see us scoring from Chirua kind of just being awkward and then just like putting a ball across and someone running in sort of far side and tapping it in. That kind of, what do they call them on FIFA? The sweaty goals, didn't they, on FIFA 14 or whatever it is when we used to play there. But I can see that kind of happening. So I could see a goal for Marshall or Charles in this game. Maybe not Charles. Maybe Charles. Maybe it's time that he does it. But I can see an opportunity for him anyway. But it comes from Chirua, Ruskin, and Sorensen. So I can see us scoring in this. I just can't see us keeping them out fully either. What prediction are you going to go for in this one? How do you think Town can score, and how are we going to win this game? Because for me, it hinges on Chirua and the two wing backs really being on form. If they don't play well, I think job's done. I think it's a struggle.
I'll look at another huff and puff goal like against Shrewsbury, where it's a couple of nice passes from Sorensen Evans down that side and a pullback. And whilst it was Karoma that night, I fancy Marshall to bag one that way. But I think we're going to have to score more than one to win the game. I think there's no way we go through this without conceding, and I don't really back it to score 2 goals. So in my head here, I'm looking between losing 1-0 and a 1-1 draw. But for a little bit of positivity, I'll go with a 1-1 draw. We have been better away from home generally, not Wigan, but before that we've been a little bit better. I thought the football was quite nice against Wrexham, but again, Matt, I thought Lonvik was the main man for the football being better against Wrexham in that he passed it very progressively. I don't think Brodie Spencer can do that. Turton can't do that. Ruffles can't do that. Hoggy can't do that. Don't think Sorensen and Ruskin can do that either. I don't think it's their kind of jam either. So I don't feel like we'll be able to pass as nicely as we did against Wrexham. So it's really tough to sit here and predict a very positive outcome. But I'll go with a 1-1 draw. I'll go with Marshall scoring. But it's going to be another tough game for us, I think, this one.
I think it's going to follow a similar pattern to Stevenage. Whereas if we score first, I think we'll win the game 2-1. If we don't score first, I think we'll lose or at best draw. So it hinges for me on that first goal because Town are different. If Town concede, they still have these mental issues, don't they? Which they've had all season, really. Where if they go behind, especially where they are at the minute with the players they've got, they do tend to struggle. But if they go in front, things tend to they start to relax a little bit more, and I think they relax a little bit more away from home as well than we do at home. So I'm going to be a bit more positive. I think we'll win 2-1, but we have to score first. I think in my head we have to score first to do that. I do fancy Callum Marshall to score again. I think he's playing quite well at the minute. I thought he was really good in a lot of the game against Wrexham. But I think Chirua and the two wing backs are going to be key. Who's going to score the second? You'd love to say Anthony Evans against his old club, wouldn't you? But I'm not sure that would happen. Maybe one for Charles, or maybe Freddie off the bench. Something like that. I mean, something's going to have to change, isn't it? In terms of the striking look for us, because it's not been great this season, and we're not going to score from a set piece. You would imagine now with the three fullbacks. I mean, against Wrexham, we ended up with 5 fullbacks on across the back 5, didn't we? Which was crazy at one point. And then Hoggy came on to make it 4 fullbacks and a central midfielder. Let's have a look around the grounds then, mate, before we... In fact, let's go to our Andy Takes That Chance Patreon users for their predictions on this game as well. So we have a little Takes That Chance community where we post questions out to those who have joined us as a Takes That Chance supporter, and we do like to ask for their opinion. And basically, for the driving, Scott Nixon says 2-0 to Town this weekend. James Bartaby says good performance and a 3-1 win, and Evans to score, obviously. Will Shaw says I'm going crazy. I'm going to join the winning brigade and go 0-2. Early goal from Ruskin and a late strike by Taylor off the bench. That's a shout, isn't it? Taylor maybe off the bench to get a winner. That wouldn't be a bad shout, actually. Tom Reaney says Bristol's not 1-4, so 3-1 Rovers win. See, Tom's thinking along the lines of Charity FC, isn't he? Nuffield Health, etc. So yeah, UNESCO. I'm trying to think of who the main one is. Who always email me every 5 minutes to ask for donations. Terrier Blog, Johnny Mack says 2-1 Town. High press to function just enough to overwhelm a poor team trying to play a passing game. 3 players to be subbed off with cramp. Utter woke nonsense. So there we go from Johnny Mack. So those are the predictions we've got on.
Hey, Matt, maybe this is what we need to do as well. We can add an extra prediction part where you predict how many injuries Town are going to take off in the game. That would be more interesting than the actual results this season.
It's depressing. Honestly, I were on the League One podcast with Gab Sutton earlier, and I just said, listening to a Michael Duff press conference is like going into your GP surgery and wanting to listening to your test results, isn't it? It's you're just waiting to hear bad news, aren't you? It's every time it's depressing. It's not good. I haven't enjoyed. I quite like listening to Michael Duff speak, but I don't tune in anymore because I don't want any more bad news. It's just bad times. Let's have a look at this weekend. What we've got anyway around the ground. So Crawley versus Reading. I don't think Reading might win that one, but I still don't really fancy Reading for a top 6. Although they've done phenomenally well to be where they are with what's gone on this season. Stockport County versus Charlton is the big game at 12:30. That's the game what we need to watch because a win either way is probably not a bad result. If we win, a draw wouldn't be a bad result. In fact, I don't think there's a bad result there. I think the worst result might be Charlton winning, in fairness. But if Stockport win, that gives us a chance to put a little bit between us and Charlton, I guess. Barnsley, Blackpool. Barnsley is still kind of like muddling away. I don't think they're going to be in the top 6. They're not consistent enough, but they're still picking points up where they can. Birmingham against Lincoln. Birmingham, you would expect to win that. Burton versus Bolton. I mean, Burton's little charge seems to have faltered, doesn't it, lately? And Bolton are on fire. Is it 5 out of 6 or something? Bolton are on the way into the playoffs. I think they finished 4th to Bolton this season. And I wouldn't fancy playing them over 2 legs at the minute. The way the form is at the minute, the form can change between now and May. I wouldn't fancy that. So I fancy Bolton to win. Exeter, Shrewsbury, Leyton Orient, Northampton. Is the Leyton Orient bubble burst, do you think, Killer?
I think so. What have they lost now? 4 in a row, and I think they've just fallen away. I think they've had their run, and I think they're falling away just at the right time for us, or the wrong time if you think they're weak and you'd want them in the playoffs. But yeah, I'm not too worried about Orient anymore.
Peterborough versus Wickham. I mean, we're not looking at second anymore, are we? But it's more between Wickham and Wrexham now. I think that's second place. Peterborough are at home against Wickham. Peterborough, have they turned a corner maybe a little bit? Stevenage versus Mansfield. Wigan versus Cambridge. I thought that was harsh sacking Sean Maloney, didn't you, for Wigan? I mean, £4 million wage bill, doing really well. I know they hadn't won. I think they won 1 in 7 against Charity FC. But I thought I quite like Sean Maloney. I don't think he's a bad manager. And Wrexham versus Rotherham. And do you know what? I fancy Wrexham to now go on and get second place. I have done for a little while, to be honest. I thought I just have that question mark over Wickham. I just think they'll fall away a little bit. I know they've got Kone, who's really good, and Udo, who's quite a pest as well. And they're spending a little money here and there. But I just think it might be a little bit of a bridge too far. And Wrexham's consistency is pretty good. Although, having said that, Wrexham have been a little squiff at home, haven't they, of recent times. So if we look at Wrexham's home form, they have drawn with Peterborough, lost on penalties in the EFL Trophy, drew 0-0 with Bolton as well. And then before that, they lost at home to Leyton Orient, but also beat Bolton in the EFL Trophy. But before that, lost at home to Stevenage, drew at home to Birmingham. So they're on a little bit of a slippery slope. But I fancy them to get back on it. I think that win against us is going to turn a few corners, and I think they'll clog their way into second place. I think that's theirs for the taking now. I think Wickham will do well to hold on to it, but I think Wrexham will do it. And to be honest, mate, if we don't go up this season, then ideally you want Birmingham out of the way, Wrexham maybe out of the way, and Bolton maybe out of the way, and then next year we'll see where it brings. But I'm not giving up on this year yet. You know, I've not done a full John Cena heel turn or anything yet. So that was good, by the way. If anyone watched that.
Is it Sunday, Matt? Is it going to happen Sunday though? If we have a poor day on Saturday and everyone else wins around us, will it change then for you?
Should we go full John? Should we go full Mark Cartwright / John Cena? It wasn't the only heel turn, was it, that weekend? But
no, but I agree with you. I think Wrexham are taking second. They just look like a team to me that are getting it right at the right time. Poor performance against us, really, for them, but they found a way to win. And it's all right saying they're having a bit of a blip, but they're still winning games, having a bit of a blip. We have a blip. Yeah,
they have that momentum.
We look awful. Yeah, I think Leeds do it, and it's it's just Leeds do it, don't they? This is how Leeds get promoted at the end of the season. Liverpool do it as well in the Premier League. Man United did it with Ferguson for years, and they started the season off, and you're thinking, I actually thought they'd be a little bit better. It gets to Christmas, they get the shit in order, and they just go on a run that nobody can touch, and they get last-minute goals, game after game after game, and they just peak at the right time. The exact opposite of what we seem to be doing at the moment. And yes, it's injuries, but for me, Matt, looking around the games, I am already looking at holding on to that 6th place because I think the teams in the playoffs are tough. I think you're going to have Wickham in there, you're going to get Stockport in there, you're definitely going to get Bolton in there. I think Charlton are the weakest team in that top 7 if you include us. So I'm already in that kind of place where I'm thinking, well, I think the other guys are going to be there. I hope Charlton suffer because I think they're the one that's weakest for us to stay ahead of, to just keep in the top 6. Because looking at the players that we've got, it's going to be a challenge, Matt. It's going to be a challenge between now and the end of the season to stay in that top 6. I think because Bolton on fire, they have suddenly got it together, and maybe the fans are right in the ever out, and then it's such a strange situation, isn't it? What's going on with Bolton this year with Markham obviously leaving, and then they've not lost since, I don't think. But we all think he's doing a great job. Obviously it's a team that he's built up, so it's a little bit different. Everyone else below there, 7th and below, Reading, Orient, Barnsley, Stevenage, Lincoln, I think they're too far gone. I think the top 7 have broken away, and it comes down to now, can Town win enough games to finish below 7th in that top league of 7? And this week, everyone's playing, like I say, with Charlton playing Stockport. If there is a draw there and we win, it gives us a bit of a platform to build upon. But it's another big week for Town.
Just a little stat there. The last 3 times Liverpool have won the league, the top flight. The last 2 times, and this will be the 3rd time. So if Liverpool win the league this year and Leeds win the Championship, the last 3 times Liverpool have won the league, Leeds have won the 2nd tier. So there you go. That's a bizarre little stat for you. And I dislike both teams immensely. So it's not the greatest time for me. So pray for me. Right, that's it. So we've got time for this week. Thank you very much for listening. So remember, join the Patreon, whether you want to pay or whether you don't. Either way, join it because there'll be competitions on there to get full access and all sorts of stuff. But we need a few more member signups first before we can make that worthwhile. So make sure you sign up, even if it's just for the notifications. It's really good just to know when a new pod or a new article's dropped. So get on that, and we'll be getting on the review show this Sunday when we have another special guest joining us. I won't tell you who it is just yet, just in case he bottles it like Killer did last week. But anyway, that's it. Thank you. I'll see you soon.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.